Hey Shannon, it's Thursday, and by the time you see this, it will be Saturday. And so I had this fun Halloween backdrop that I had created just for you. And then I got off work an hour early today, and so it's gorgeous outside. So I'm at the park again, and I hope that you don't mind. But I loved your video last week, or this week. It was this week. And I loved it for all of the things, I really did, but one of the things that I loved the most was being able to see Walden Pond. I've always loved Walden, I've always loved his story, and so being able to see that pond was just incredible. My selfie stick is closing in on itself, that's weird. So, I loved your video, and then you asked me to talk about identity, and so you have to realize that first of all, you've opened up a soapbox, and you've opened up a lot of potential things, but also identity is a very, very, very broad topic. We have hundreds of sociologists and psychologists and theorists and philosophers even that try to explain identity. And we have to have so many broad topics. We have to have so many various topics because people are so diverse and because humans are just such complex things, we have Charles Cooley, who coined the looking glass theory, where you're going to act differently around different people based on how you think that they see you. Or we have Erik Erikson's theory about identity in adolescence, and it talks a lot about ego and fulfilling your potential, which is something that Augustus Waters would have loved had he known. And I'm just gonna toss all of these guys aside and just tell you what I think identity is. So I think of it as rings on a tree trunk. And you have your basic one. This is the core one. This is the one that is the most difficult to change over time. It's just the most solid. We have things like sex and sexual orientation and gender and race and age and socioeconomic class and demographics. Those are the basics of your identity. It's gonna give you a foundation to your identity house. And then we have the second ring, which is personality. These are your likes and your dislikes and the things that you're going to spend your time doing and pursuing, or things that you're not because you hate them. And then we have the third thing, which is the most vague and the most unimportant, but you can just kind of use it because we are just really complex people, is where you went to school and what kind of car you drive. And using me for an example, I drive a Honda Civic, and it's not so much important about what kind of car I drive. Who cares? That's not a really big part of my identity, nor should it be. But it is part of my identity because I'm not a car person. I drive a Honda Civic because I don't care to drive anything else, but also because it's very low maintenance, and because I have to have a low maintenance car because I don't care. And it's just one of those things. It's part of my personality and my identity that I just don't care about the car that I drive. So those are kinds of the things. And then, so that answered kind of your first question. That's the basics. Who defines identity and what defines identity? And then you asked me if I think that our identities can change. And yes, I do. And I wholeheartedly believe this, actually, based on experiences. Oh, which, by the way, I should add. I forgot to add that within those three rings of your identity tree are experiences. Those are the things that are gonna help you build your identity. Moving on. So, I believe that based on my experience. I do. I believe that, first of all, we can be whoever we want to be, but also that identity is very fluid, and sometimes our experiences give us opportunities that we never imagined that we can grow into, and that builds our identity too. And there are also times when there will be parts of our identities that we wish we had that our life doesn't give us leeway to, I guess. I mean, one of the things that I wish I could identify as is a mom. That hasn't happened yet, and I don't know, do we even want to get into that? Probably not, but I mean, that's still a part of my personality, and it's still something that I can identify with, but it's not a part of my identity. So you about Taylor Swift. And so, okay, like, I'm going to answer your question, can we change our identity, using my experience, because that's the best way I know how to answer you, and then I'm going to tie Taylor Swift in. So, little backstory about me. I started going to trauma therapy weekly when I was 22. And that took a little over 3 years. And so I'm coming out of the end of trauma therapy. I'm 25, 26 years old. And when you go to trauma therapy and you heal, you get rid of this toxic identity. And the identity that I had was anorexic. And then secondary traumatized. And so I'm coming out of trauma therapy healed and happy and healthy. And I don't know what to identify as. Like, I've been anorexic for so long, and this was such a prominent part of my identity that I was just like, wait a minute, who am I? And it was really, really bad. But one of the things that I couldn't or didn't know how to do was identify as a woman. I've been biologically female my whole entire life, and I've always identified as cisgender. And so womanhood should not have been a very foreign thing to me, but it was. And so I had to learn how to be a woman, at like 26. And that was a crazy experience to me. And I'm still having those moments where I just I'm continuously learning. But like I've never identified specifically as a woman up until a couple of years ago. And so identity is always changing. And so segueing into your question about Taylor Swift and her new identity, I'm just going to tell you, so coming out of trauma therapy, I had to find ways to identify with womanhood. And what I would do, just very, very basics, just very starting out, is I had an online blog, and it was just for me. And, I would write about my experiences, but I would use images, I would use GIFs to express how I felt about those things. And all of those GIFs were female. They were all female characters. And it was mainly Taylor Swift and Meredith Grey, because those were two fictional characters. I'm just going to lump Taylor Swift into fictional, even though that's not her. But she was that image. She was my fictional image that I needed to use. So it was mainly like Meredith Grey and Taylor Swift, because while building up the identity of what I thought womanhood was, I built it up as like strong and classy and beautiful and independent and well educated. That was kind of more Meredith Grey. Like, I understand that the two aren't interchangeable, but I built up my ideas of womanhood based on those two characters. Especially with Meredith Grey, like her helping profession, her not saying this right, she's very well educated. And so that was one of the things that I did to build up my identity as a woman. And thankfully it's grown. I'm not, in womanhood kindergarten anymore, and that's wild, but you just do what you can. So thinking about Taylor Swift, I love her. I love her so much, and I appreciate her because so much of my childhood was spent starving myself instead of dealing with my stuff and my emotions, that I didn't get a lot of practice dealing with my emotions. And so now as an adult, I'm trying to practice expressing myself and using my words or using images to express how I feel. And so I use a lot of Taylor Swift lyrics when I'm upset and I'm just writing things out. And like one that I'm really using lately is the song I Knew You Were Trouble. And it's just that line that says, no apologies, he'll never see you cry, pretends he doesn't know that he's the reason why you're drowning. I write that over and over and over again in my journal because it's so validating to me. And that's just, the words that I express. And so her new single, Look What You Made Me Do, which is just so perfect. Oh, Shannon, it's just so perfect. But I didn't identify with it in the sense of like a breakup. I saw it as a call to arms. I saw it as a voice. I saw it as not a new identity of Taylor Swift, but just a new facet. Because I feel like she is just kind and sweet and classy and, you know, an excellent maker of music. But, you know, you can still be kind and sweet and wonderful and still hold healthy boundaries. That's just what I feel like her new album is just holding healthy boundaries, because she's just done. She's putting her foot down. And I mean, like, okay, so like, you're gonna take a lot of crap in your life, you know, like, and you gotta let haters hate. But there comes a point in time where it's just mean and it's just not okay anymore. And so you have to hold that boundary. And okay, so there's been only 4 times in my life where I've actually held that I mean, like, I hold boundaries. I feel like I hold the boundaries decently well. But there have only been 4 times in my life where I made those floorboards shake. And it didn't take away my kindness. It didn't take away my generosity. It didn't take away my vivacious personality, which is something that I identify with very strongly. It just meant that I was holding a healthy boundary. You know, and then just to kind of like wrap this up, I guess, I really could go on for hours in this gorgeous park talking about one of my favorite things. So at the end of her music video, she has all of her Taylor Swifts lined up just for us, and it's such a perfect image to me. But one of the Taylors, so Circus Taylor, is like, you know, you are so fake. And Guitar Taylor starts to cry. And that was something that I really identified with, because people accuse me being fake all the time. I get it more often than not. And it's always people that don't know me very well. So first of all, there's that. But second of all, when people say that about me, I kind of want to scream, like, you don't understand. I get to wake up every day and have this beautiful, wonderful life. And it's a choice that was offered to me after I went through trauma therapy. And so, like, it just feels so good to be genuinely excited about literally everything in my life, because it's like I went through my whole entire life, you know, 25-ish years with trauma glasses on. And now that trauma is healed, I have the opportunity to take them off and just see the world for what it is. And it's actually very, very beautiful. And it's my obsession, and I'm in love with it. Even my bad experiences and my bad days, this whole world is just so beautiful and so gorgeous, and I love it. There's not enough time to tell you how much I really, really love my life, but I'm just genuinely excited about everything, because all of a sudden, my life is no longer trauma or starvation, and it's no longer trauma therapy. It's just life. And, you know, so what is the point of all of this? You know, I've told you where I believe identity comes from. And I've told you that identity can change over time. And I've told you very short clips about identity throughout my life. And I think that my point is that identity is just beautiful. I love identifying as a woman. I love identifying as an intellectual. I love identifying as a working woman. And my point of that is more that I conduct myself in society, not so much but about womanhood. You know, I love identifying as a friend. I love identifying as a John Green enthusiast. I enjoy identifying as a pianist. All of these things that... Okay, my point is that I think that people don't fully take advantage of the opportunities that are right in front of them. I think that they get blocked by this identity that they think they have to have, or that they think they have based on that looking glass theory. And I think it's silly. I know no bounds because of trauma therapy, and I don't know how regularly healthy people identify, because that wasn't my experience, but this was. So, and I'm kind of just gonna skip over genuine fraud because I've ranted for 15-ish minutes and I'm trying to keep this shorter. But I hope that made sense, and I hope I just hope that it made sense, because identity is just so beautiful. But yeah, so that's just kind of, that's it. That's really, really bottom line. So happy Thursday.